history of modern Europe basically is divided into three broad categories. One is classical antiquity, which is the Greco-Roman period, Greek and Roman period, philosophical thought. Then we have the Middle Ages. Before recently, Middle Ages was called the Dark Ages. So I don't know how many people have heard of the term Dark Ages, meaning there was nothing in Europe was happening at that time. And the timeline here is it started from 5th century to 15th century, so almost 1,000 years. Okay, and then the modern period starts from 6th century to the present times.
So Dark Ages is Middle Ages?
That is correct. That is what it was called. Now people don't call it, they call it the Middle Ages, but actually it was always called the Dark Ages. Now what happens is new history is always being rewritten, so people now historians do not like the word Dark Ages, meaning it has a negative connotations, right? So they prefer the term Middle Ages. And if you look at the Middle Ages, this is a quick and I really had to do it really fast. Because each one of them, and this is the main one I will spend time upon. This is the modern history. This is the Middle Ages. We are not discussing this at all, but this is what modern society, modern civilization thinks about Greek. That's civilization. The glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome. So their philosophical thought, their way of life was an ideal to emulate. You see what I'm trying to say? Here the Middle Ages, this is the 1,000 years period. This is called like the Dark Ages. Now the term has been reduced to the early medieval age, but still people use it for the whole period. We will discuss something here about in the crisis in the Middle Ages, and all of modern history. Remember, these are three important things that happened in the early modern century: Renaissance, Age of Discovery, Protestant Reformation. In the middle period was the Russian Revolution, Industrial Revolution, American Revolution, the French Revolution, and something called the Great Divergence. The Great Divergence is basically where modern Europe, the technological progress of modern Europe, quickly accelerated and left the old world, like India, the Middle East, China, Japan behind. And this is what historians call the Great Divergence, where technological advance diverged the old world from Europe. This is what it basically means. Where are we? So this is the map of Europe in the Middle Ages, which is about 450. That's when the Middle Age is starting. 450 is what? About 210 years before Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is born, right? About 220 years. So this is the map of the world at around that time. You can see this is the Byzantium Empire, which is called the Eastern Roman Empire, and that's the western part. Okay. The early Middle Ages. Here is the map of the early Middle Ages of Europe. Now, of the world actually, I shouldn't say Europe. This is the Abbasid Khilafah. This is the Umayyad Khilafah in Spain. This portion here, doesn't it work? No, it doesn't work here. Okay,
yeah.
Right here, this is the Abbasid Khilafah. This is I believe this is the Byzantium Empire. This is where the Frankish. You see, the Western Roman Empire has disintegrated into different, small parts. Okay. So, what did I go ahead? Yes. Oops. ये क्या हो रहा है?
पीछे left arrow से ना?
Where was I? Was I here? Yeah. So this was the early Middle Ages. This was the Justinian actually tried to retake the Western Empire, so it evolved into that. Now we have the early Middle Ages. The Middle Ages. Now you can see the different things are changing a little bit. This is 650. So 650 is just around the time Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is born. This is the high Middle Age, coming down. So 1190, you can see how Europe is looking. Look at this. All this is this area is all the Muslims. These are all Muslims areas, Khilafah. Now 1328. Now you can see now the Byzantine Empire is no more. It's just a small thing here, and here is the Holy Roman Empire has started coming about, which is yeah. And let's look at next. One of the crises that happened in the late Middle Ages, and this is going to shape Europe's psychological outlook. Three things happened. There was a demographic collapse, there was political instabilities and religious issues. What was the demographic collapse? The demographic collapse, I don't know how many people have heard about the Bubonic Plague, the plague. This was a devastating disease that spread out the old world, and it devastated, across. It is estimated that almost 50 million people were killed. 20 to 60% of the population of Europe was decimated, and so was different parts of the world too. And it happened here. So I'm digressing here a little bit to tell you about history of disease. We don't appreciate disease. We look at why am I spending time here on this thing is one of the things about modern secular state is that we are very healthy people. Yeah, we are healthier than previous people, right? We have more advanced in medicine, and therefore we are healthier, we're living longer. This is one of the things that happen. Why are they saying that? Because they are saying that because look at the plague. Look at it. There were three major plagues that decimated the world, and it caused pandemic across the whole of Europe and the old world. Literally, people were burning their children because after they died, because burial was not an option. You had to burn them. People after people, 5, 10, 15 people of entire households, villages were destroyed. I will tell you why I'm talking about all this thing very soon. The second plague happened, and then the third one happened. Then there's the other disease was cholera. There were 7 cholera outbreaks in the last 200 years, and we don't really appreciate it. Let me share with you. Look, in the second cholera outbreak, 15,000 Hajis died in Mecca in 1846. In the fourth one, almost 30 to 90,000 Hajis died in Mecca. 100, almost 100,000. I mean, this is estimates. Remember, it could be even be higher. The sixth one actually affected the Egypt and the Osmania Khilafah particularly very hard. So it killed more than 800,000 people in India. Same, I remember this is not, we are discussing something else, so I'm just digressing to tell you how diseases affect the outlook of people. Imagine people dying so much, and then they get a better standard. Won't they feel that they have achieved something? Psychologically, if I am sick and I become well tomorrow, I think that I have done something to achieve, to do that. And what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Anybody remember the ayahs? He says, when bad thing happens, they call their Rahman. And when we provide them with provisions and everything, and they say, well, we have done it. So we think of those ayahs only in terms of single people. But here we're talking about civilizations. You see what I'm saying? We don't put those ayahs in terms of civilizational outlook. Those people, when the plague was happening, the cholera was happening, do you know how, I have personally heard from my grandparents how much they were affected by the cholera epidemic. And the situation was so bad. If you talk to, now the generation has passed, if you talk to many of my grandparents, peers, they lost so many kids in this epidemics. So think about it now. We are in a better. There's no cholera epidemic as such. There's no plague as such. They exist, but not at this scale. Don't you think people will be feeling what Allah Subhanahu wa Taala said? No, we have done it. So the other aspect of the crisis of the late Middle Ages was there was a lot of fighting, as usual, which is nothing there. You see, more people have been killed. More people have been killed in the War of the Roses. Is basically a civil war between two rival parties in England, and it devastated United Kingdom. It killed so many people. The 100 Years' War is the longest war in history between France and Britain. Right? 100 years they were fighting continuously. Think about it. How the psychological outlook of people will be. You see here the Polish-Teutonic War basically is the Polish-German War. The Teutonics will become the German state. This is the historical roots of modern day problem with Germany and Poland. So out of this, people, all this crisis, what do they shed? Malthusian concept. What is the Malthusian concept? The Malthusian concept is resources are limited and people are, unlimited. Population is too much. We should do something about it. So look at the way people have explained these things. It says the plague was as an inevitable crisis imposed on humanity to control the population and human resources. You see how people are being shaped by these things? When this guy is talking about this, he's writing this thing. What is he looking at? What is he looking at? Let me ask you, brothers. Let me ask you this: if a crisis happens to Brother Mazhar or somebody, how do we respond? Do we say, "Oh, Brother Mazhar, you have too many children. That is the source of your problem"? No. We give him, glad tidings of the akhirah. We give him, sabr. Various ways of uplifting his hope. Is this uplifting hope of humanity? So when these things have happened and people have analyzed it, not in the light of Iman, but in light of material philosophies, this is the outcome. There was somebody.
Add something here, if you allow me.
Yeah, let me finish my thought and then I give you. I would translate this thing in Urdu. I can't translate it in English because it doesn't sound, well. There was a person, I will not tell you there was some earthquake in India and people died. And you know what his response was? He says, "Dharti ka boj kam ho gaya." Please.
Yes. So the thing is, if you see this kind of thought or this kind of thinking is there all the time in people, there are some bad apples. Throughout history in humanity, there are some bad apples. The significant point is, when this thought becomes the mainstream thought and develop into
a paradigm.
So this is very significant to understand that if today we allow these kind of thoughts They are good people. Instead of projecting them, promoting them, supporting them, we don't support them. These people grow.
Correct.
That comes to this very famous saying that the world is a bad place not because of the bad people, but the silence of the good people.
Correct.
Today, the sin thought is there too, but we allow that thought by not supporting good people. Yes.
So here basically the importance of Amar bil Maroof Nahi Anil Munkar. Basically,
That is can't do it alone. For instance, go to Disney World, right, and do any kind of Amar bil Maroof or Nahi alone. You have to go alone. And then you have to dress the way they portray terrorists. I want you to dress that. Because some of the dressings, there's nothing wrong with this dressing. There's Sunnah dressing.
well, you cannot do anything alone because that way you get singled out.
Exactly.
More than that, in one thing aspect, when you do singly, let me tell you something.
Now the bad part is, let me complete that, then I'm done. The bad part is, Muslims, they've not been educated about the significance of these things, especially supporting the good and the religious obligation for doing that. We're not been educated. Neither we are educated from the secular schools we go through in our Muslim majority countries, nor the religious people are taking this responsibility to do that. Yes.
Just one thing, I clarify this thing. Now when you do something good, let me give you an example. And this has happened multiple times in New York City. Okay? When the taxi driver returns a valuable 5 million, diamonds, this and that, whatever the story is, to the owner, how is he applauded? Good New York taxi driver, New York produces good taxi driver. If you want to talk about his, background, good Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Indian, or whatever.
He's a good human being.
Good human being.
He's a good human being.
But see the point
They don't
is,
tell you that he's inspired.
he's inspired by Islam.
And his ideology he's supporting is Islam.
Like on a news conference, a person came and he said, "This is what," and after that the mic was switched off. This is what happened. He said, "What inspired you to return this 5 million diamonds and all that thing?" I can't, whatever.
That reporter must have got it. That what the kind of question you posed.
So
None of you should pose this kind of question.
No, so
What inspired you?
So he said, Islam. I want to show that Muslims are not Bin Laden, and I never heard of that person again.
And I never heard this question back again.
See?
Now the thing is, if you make Muslims into individuals, if you individualize them so that they can connect with each other into a movement or to support an ideology, so what happens? That the good things which you are being inspired by Islam doing it, people doesn't understand this.
Exactly.
People are not getting this message.
Exactly.
This guy is doing it because he's inspired by Islam. We need to understand. Very significant. Islam is not getting the credit. Whereas at the time of Prophet ﷺ, because he brought the ideology and whoever he converted was with him, supported him as a one unit, whatever people were doing, credit was going to
Islam.
Islam and him. He was getting the credit.
So, where are we now? So, two things I will just pick. Now, I can't cover, history of Europe all over this. So that was basically, in a nutshell, how the psychology of Europe has been shaped. Okay. The other aspect, religious aspect, I want to address here is something called the Western Schism. This is a time in the Catholic Church where they were rivals for the position of the Pope. Imagine fighting for the Pope. Something this has happened in the Muslim world too. Don't forget.
Every day.
fighting for the Khalifa and this thing. So it's not something that is I'm disparaging them. This is very common. But what happens as a result of this? Christianity went down. What took its place? Secularism. See, they were fighting all the way up till 1410. So once Christianity becomes weakened, definitely another system will take its place, right? So, and this is what happened. This was how the fighting was going on in Europe. All of the reds are in one side, all of the purple on one side, the blue on one side. So there was a three-way struggle there. You can see whole of Europe was involved in this power struggle. And as a result, as we go on, we will show you that as a result of this, secularism, people got tired of these things. They say, okay, let's try another system. You see what I'm saying? Prior to the Western Schism, there was the East-West Schism. This is a pivotal role, and actually, I will show you something here how this split is affecting our present geopolitics. Just today, right now, this has a direct bearing on today. Let me show you. I will demonstrate. Perhaps you can disagree with me. That's fine. So the East-West Schism is when the Catholic Church is split between I'm not going into the details, just explaining the split between the Eastern Orthodox Church and Roman Catholic. That's the first split in Christianity. Okay, so that Eastern Orthodox was Byzantium, which is now Istanbul, and the other headquarters was in Rome, Roman Catholic. Okay, and here are some diagrams of history of Christianity and how different sects at what points they have come across. Okay, so here let me just go. Let me give you the other. I think the other one is better. So yeah, this one is less clumsy here. So the first break that happened was actually very early on. Nestorianism, Church of the East. They have a different philosophical outlook. Oriental Orthodoxy, that's a different outlook. Eastern Orthodoxy. So here, this is the mainstream Christianity went up to this point, AD 1054. Here, the Roman Catholic branch went this way.
Before we go further, the schism is actually the idea behind it is there was an inherent disagreement which led to this
split. Yeah.
Oh no, hold on. Now let's understand our Islam. We, unfortunately, some of our big names, in order to make their name further big, they end up creating something which shouldn't be there. Now it makes it presents Islam as there was an inherent conflict of thought inherent. That is dividing Islam further. And now the thing is, will you take that responsibility? Yeah. Wow, people took it.
So here, this is the one that we are discussing here. This branch is the Roman Catholic, and this branch becomes the Eastern Orthodox Church. Right now, the headquarters of, where is the headquarters of Eastern Orthodox Church? Anybody can tell me?
Russia.
He's right, Moscow. It was Istanbul. When Istanbul was taken by Muhammad Fateh, it shifted to Russia. Okay? So, I mean, the history of Christianity is a separate, discussion altogether. I just wanted to show you this one here. And then the other one that impacts...
So be minded, this is a history as per thought, when the ideas diverted. So this whole history is about this presentation or lecture is based on this.
So here, this is another very important part here about secularism. here Roman Catholicism branches off into two major branches, Anglicanism and Protestantism. Do anybody remember how Anglicanism started?
Anglicans are the Protestants.
No, they are not Protestants. Anglicanism actually started just a little bit before Protestant movement.
Okay, so these are basically, they have roots in England.
Yes, this is the Church of England. Anglican means Church of England. You know how it started? And let me just remind you guys, it's a very, very interesting history.
I know the King of England and the Pope, they had conflict.
On why?
Basically on power. So they
had on power, yes, but basically it started like Henry VIII. He wanted to marry multiple wives. He married up to 8 wives. I think 7, 8. I can't remember. Okay. So what happened was, remember in Christianity there's no divorce.
But hold on, why? When he can have women for free every day, why?
No, but he wanted wives. There's a reason behind that. Let's not go into that.
Religious. He doesn't want to do anything.
He had mistresses too. He had mistresses. True.
What made him marry?
Camilla Bowles and Diana are ancestors from that branch. Okay.
Oh, so why Queen is so unhappy about Camilla.
So anyway, so what happened was he wanted a divorce. In Christianity, the only way you can, in Catholicism, the only way you can get divorced is if the Pope annuls the marriage. Okay. So he asked. So there's a lecture there's a presentation that I really am going to give one of these days about this aspect here. So he sent his representative to the Pope requesting the annulment of the marriage. Unfortunately, the representative had a dog, and when he went there, the dog bit the Pope's feet, the toe, and then there was a big issue, and then everything went haywire and they became Anglican. So it's a long story, but we will discuss that some other time. Anyway, so this is the story of Anglicanism.
Very interesting story, and very significant to learn lessons that when your ego grows to that extent and you are holding a position in a religion, that when a dog bites you, it doesn't bite your toe, it bites your ego.
Exactly.
And the other side is king. Your ego is against the ego of the king. This is supposed to be teachings of the religion you're holding the highest office of.
Actually, if you study the Roman Catholic, history of Roman Catholic and the Church of England, you don't find any religion there. It's all about the power struggle. That's it.
So
who's writing that history?
So let's continue.
Even the European historians.
No, let's continue. Let's continue on this thing. So this is different diagrams here. I'm not going to go into details on each one of them here. I'll just show you here. This is actually the modern day denominations. You know, all those Salvation Army, Methodism, Lutheranism, Reformed, Anabaptist, all this Amish, how they have come about. You know, that's a different lecture altogether. Inshallah, some other time.
I'm going to share this presentation.
If you want to, I can. Yeah.
I would like to.
Okay. And what is this concept of third Rome? I want to connect it with this schism with the present day. Third Rome is basically, first Rome is the Roman. Okay. The second Rome is Constantinople when it became Christian, or even prior to becoming Christian, and then it was taken by the Muhammad al-Fatih. Right? So what happened? Now, the current seat in the Vatican is considered to be the third Rome. That is what the Catholic would say is the continuation of that, legacy. However, Russians have a different view about this thing. And they believe the third Rome should be actually Moscow now. They are the rightful inheritors of the legacy of Rome. Okay, and I cannot go into details on this thing here. This is Fyodor Dostoevsky, and he has a very, people must have heard about Scott Peterson, Professor Scott Peterson in Toronto here. Professor Scott Peterson is deeply influenced by this philosopher. Okay, and Dostoevsky, you can see here, He has influenced a lot of people. I will tell you the next one. I think I highlighted that part. His political philosophy was that he believed, and this is what Eastern Orthodox actually, how should I say, believe or accept or is they believe that the Catholic Church had adopted the principles of rationalism, legalism, materialism, and individualism from ancient Rome and has passed its philosophy to Protestantism and consequently to atheistic socialism. What does this mean? This big line, what does it really mean? It basically means that the Orthodox Church, the Greek Orthodox Church, thinks that the modern Catholic Church is in cahoots with Protestantism, which is in cahoots with atheism and / socialism, and has abandoned all Christian values. Let me repeat.
Isn't that true?
Let me forget about whether it's true or not. This is what the Eastern Orthodox Church is saying. Let me repeat again. They are saying the Catholic Church, together with the Protestant world, Anglican and the Protestant world, and then later on with the secular atheism, humanism, has abandoned Christianity as a whole. The principles of Christianity, they are Christians, no doubt, but they have abandoned Christian principles and they are no longer working on any foundation of Christianity. Okay?
To some extent.
That's their grievance. That's their grievance. Somebody might agree with it, somebody might disagree with it. As a person, I don't care. Why? Because of this. During the Turco-Russian War, Dostoevsky asserted that war might be necessary if salvation were to be granted. He wanted the Muslim Ottoman Empire eliminated and the Christian Byzantine Empire to be restored, and he hoped for the liberation of Balkan Slavs and their unification with the Russian Empire. So they disagree with that. That's their problem, because they are not agreeing with me. You know what I'm trying to say? So this is a professor, Igor Pananin, who was born in 1958. He's a well-known, Panarin. Sorry, he's well-known. He teaches at the school, Russian Foreign Ministry. He regularly comes on Russian television channels. He became very famous for this map. This map here. He predicted that the United States is going to collapse by 2010 into 4 different parts.
Oh, Canada is going to be.
This is his original map. It has been modified over a period of time, and many people will tell you that the geostrategy of Putin is according to this map. He wants to split the United States on this identified fractured lines, and he has put all his geopolitical resources to achieve that objective, geopolitical objective. And to do that, the first thing he did was he meddled in the election, brought about a candidate that is more sympathetic to his viewpoint, and you can see the result. I don't know. I really don't know.
No, I think it makes perfect sense.
So, okay. So now let's go back to where we started from. So this.
Sophism, Stoicism.
So this is the genesis.
I think you should start from the top.
You mean back?
Yeah, the Greek.
Yeah. So I'm starting from
Persian thought.
Yeah. So
You did Hindu. You didn't do Chinese.
Okay. Yeah. One second. So I hope you guys can appreciate how things are, flowing around. So modern secular thought rests on 2 pillars, which we'll discuss, further down in detail. What are the 2 thoughts? Hedonism and materialism. What is hedonism? Hedonism is deciding what is good and bad based on the principle of pleasure or happiness. Materialism is a philosophy where you think that other than this material world, there's nothing else. This is the fundamental thing here. So now if you look at Sophism, Stoicism, Epicureanism, Aristotle, you see here I have put a gap here between these things. There's a reason for that. The reason for that is because Aristotelianism at least has something about reality. It does believe there might be some fundamental reality. Here, Epicureanism doesn't. Principle of Epicureanism is pleasure and happiness. This is what you should achieve. I will show you, when we discuss these things in detail here.
So you mean that this is a very old thought which still is...
since you have put here, can anyone tell me in modern thought where this principle is the constitution of that state?
Which principle, sorry?
The principle for this seek pleasure or happiness. There's a constitution of a country in this world in which it's constitutionally mandated that we need to seek pleasure/happiness.
Wow, don't know. I know Canadian is that the supremacy of God and something else, and then in Pakistan it's not. In USA it's not.
In USA it's not. That's the preamble of the Constitution. In pursuit of happiness, liberty. What is it? What is the favorite line? In pursuit of freedom, liberty, and happiness.
Oh.
That is how the U.S. Constitution begins.
The thing is, like a lot of people from Muslims have accepted that,
What is accepted that? They call it our Constitution.
No, not in that sense.
In that sense.
No, they accepted it to the extent that using that lens to validate Islam and its thought.
That's it. Yeah, that's another.
If that lens tells you that it is not fulfilling these objectives, you reject that thought of Islam. Any idea coming from Islam which is not fulfilling the principle, these principles.
Thomas Jefferson confesses that he is a follower of the philosophy of Epicurus. Yeah.
So I'm just going to say that, having that happiness within the Constitution, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So just want to, but it's a meaning of happiness, what it really means. So essentially with these guys, the meaning of happiness is, that picture that you showed, for example, having fun, being naked or whatever, right? So that's their concept of happiness. But I think even to us, happiness is not wrong, but it's the meaning of happiness. What does it mean to us?
So that's
very good point. Yes.
That's exactly.
Another aspect is making it a lens to judge Islam. Another problem with this, making this thought as objective of your life.
So let me address there are two fundamental issues.
I mean, where this is coming from.
So there are two fundamental issues you should understand. There's not whether you are a Muslim or not a Muslim, we have to eat, right? We eat. What's the difference between a Muslim and a non-Muslim eating the same glass of water? What's the difference? What's the difference?
The point of view.
But no, more than that, how does a Muslim drink this glass of water versus a non-Muslim? We drink the same water.
Muslim has to drink a glass of water. I don't know about the Muslim, but Islam has some guidelines. Islam tells you that, first of all, what is the criteria of water which you can drink? Then what is the methodology of the water you can drink? And what is the pre-drinking principles.
So
then
I don't.
talks-
Let me tell you something. If you have exactly the same thing, exactly same water between Muslim and non-Muslim, let me just so fast forward and try to explain this thing. Is I would say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Agreed?
Yeah.
What's so much about Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? What does it? How does it differentiate that? As soon as you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you accepted three things. First, Allah. What is the second thing?
Rahman.
Is Rahman.
Rahim.
You have accepted Allah. You have accepted. Second thing you have accepted is Risala. Who taught you Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Two, what is the third one? Akhirah. Because why do you do that? Because you want the ajr in the akhirah. You see the fundamental difference? So if a Muslim is saying, I want to be happy, for what? Why? I want to be happy. I'm saying happy in this context. It has to be, a Muslim is happy, a Muslim's action is governed under these three fundamental ideas. One, he is for the sake of Allah. Right? What is the second one? And I will tell you the hadith on this thing. For the sake of second one, it has to be within the sunnah of Rasulullah. I can't be happy and go outside and become naked.
Right, and so that's exactly what I was saying. So
Right? So I'm explaining that. That's what I'm explaining to you. And number three, it has to be in akhirah. See how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put the emphasis on this aspect. Who are the seven people who will be under his the shade of his arsh? You know one of them, one category? When one Muslim brother goes to another Muslim brother, meets him, and he says, the only reason why I have come to you is for the sake of Allah. Nothing else, nothing more. And see how Allah is happy with you. But just somebody can ask, what's the big deal? I come to your house and say, Assalamu alaikum and go away. What's the big deal? People will call you in today's age, they'll call you a fool. You wasted your time.
You don't trust your best.
Crazy person.
If I should go to Brother Fawad's house from Mississauga to Scarborough and I say, Brother Fawad, I didn't meet you for three weeks. I say, Assalamu alaikum, I'm going back. Somebody hears me and says, have you gone crazy? You don't have anything to do?
Well, I don't know about somebody. I will not let you go. I will come have food.
But the reward, look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. So, see, this is what Brother Fawad is actually talking about. Even all the concepts we are seeing through the lens of a secular materialist viewpoint.
And we are validating Islam on top of it with that lens, which is
That's the bigger problem.
ancient Greek ideology,
Yeah.
thoughts.
And if something is not in alignment with that, then we are.
Like let me tell you, I'm not picking on you or such thing, but I'm telling you, if somebody comes and you ask a traditional alim, you say, isn't Islam allowed to be happy? He says, shut up! What is this? Because he doesn't understand where he's coming from. And so he says, look at this mullah. He doesn't want anybody to be happy. He only wants to talk about death. Mouth.
No, actually, a lot of scholars, unfortunately, very sad, came up and they justify that thought in Islam. And they, in fact, is trying to present Islam in a different way now.
So, like, what is happening today?
I think we're jumping the
So-
when we're going to be talking about Plutonian and...
So the next thing is, let me give you an introduction here, and then we go on. So next time whenever we meet, I think
we can't go there. We don't have time. I mean, it's already getting 11 o'clock. So let's go back on the slide. Let's go back. So what you can... No. That's the slide was just before that. Other one, yeah. Now the thing is...
So let me wrap this up. From next time onwards, we will be discussing.
We continue.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
will.
saying finish it.
No.
I'm saying let's follow these tracks so that we can what we announced on the flyer.
Okay,
This is
go
what we
ahead and
announced.
tell me.
So what we just did. We did Greek.
So this basically let me explain the diagram, and then we can continue next time. So next one is all this Greek philosophy got mixed with Eastern philosophy from India.
So I don't think you explained Sophism and
So,
Stoicism and
no, I will explain them down. Do you want me to explain now?
that's what I'm saying. Make it a reference, go and explain and come back here. So that we
No.
stay in a line. Because you have all these things in mind, right?
No.
You don't have these
we
connections.
we can't do. That's what I'm saying. Let me just explain this thing, and then for next time we meet, I will pick up each one of them and explain, and then continue onward. See, my
Okay, then explain this Islamic development.
Okay. Let me explain this thing, this diagram one more time. Okay. So basically,
But you can't explain the Islamic one unless you don't explain this Enlightenment, Renaissance.
hold on. I'll do that. I'll do that.
Judaism.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. So this Greek philosophy got mixed with Eastern philosophies, and it is called Hellenism. How? When Alexander the Great conquered from Greek to India, then the whole amalgamation of philosophies started. Okay, so it produced Hellenism, which now it had different, sub-philosophies within it. Okay, and of which the most important was Aristotelianism and Platonism. Aristotelianism is basically the philosophy of Aristotle, the first teacher, and Platonism is Aristotle's is in modern terms Aristotle is realist, while Plato is idealist. What this means, I will just tell you now, but we will discuss it later on. Is a realist is basically a materialist in modern terms. He thinks this is what that is that's it, that's reality. You get what I'm saying? Idealist thinks there's an ideal reality somewhere. How we reach it, that's a different question, but there's some ideal. So like a classical philosophy class will give you an example that a realist thinks a table is a table. A table is a table.
Let me give you an example. A realist thinks that this marriage is marriage. You have to bear it. This is reality. An idealist thinks no. This is an idealistic marriage. Realist thing and never do idealistic marriage.
If you want to understand it that way,
We have to reach there. Now everybody must have understood.
Exactly. So I thank you for that enlightening example. Okay. So now what happened was, where is this? So what happened was we took.
So this Hellenism is after named after Helen of Troy?
No. It's Helen is actually a Greek philosopher, mythological figure. Helen, and then that's how Greek civilization is known as.
Okay.
You divide Greek civilization into different parts.
Yeah.
So Hellenism is after Alexander.
Okay. After his conquest.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Roman acquired this information, okay? All this, and they changed, modified it according to their own cultural environment. Hellenism also got passed on to Judaism and Christianity. In fact, Christianity was the most affected thing about Hellenism is that today you cannot understand Christianity without Greek philosophy. If you do not know Greek philosophy, there's no way you can understand Christianity. Absolutely no way. Greek philosophy and Christianity have become so intertwined, there's absolutely no way that you can understand Christianity without going and taking references from the Greek things. Judaism, yes, it was influenced by Greek Hellenism, but still it maintained, because they had, they maintained their kind of independence. Now what happened here? Now let's go here. Islam came about.
Now, if you can tell us what actual influence did on Judaism and Hellenism and Christianity.
Okay, give you an example, a concrete example. The whole concept of Jesus Christ dying on the cross is a very pagan concept. The Son of God is a pagan concept. it cannot be found in any authentic gospel. The Trinity.
But the letter of Paul. the letter.
Remember, Paul is not a disciple of Jesus, number one.
That's
Number
right.
two, he was a Greek learned person. Though he was a Jew, just like today. I am
You're
ethnically,
telling me Hellenism came into Christianity through Paul.
not through Paul, there are different sources, but yes, one of them is Paul. It's not only Paul, and people just throw everything on Paul, but
So-
no.
Okay, fine. So the question is, this is one example you gave. Now, influence, that used the example you gave, that Jesus Christ was Son of God and was crucified. What Hellenism has to do with that?
Because in paganism, this is one of the aspects of paganism, is reincarnation and God coming down on earth. This is a pagan concept. It's everywhere in any pagan.
Okay, so you mean that the Christianity, the birth of Jesus was a miraculous birth
That's not-
without a father.
That's fine.
Without a father.
Okay.
Paganism didn't accept that.
It,
It didn't fit the lens of paganism. So they created a father and they put God there.
no. Paganism is riddled with mythologies where people are born miraculously. That's fine. That was not the problem with paganism. Whether Jesus Christ had a father or not. They just want to make someone divine. But that's how pagans think.
Okay. So in Hellenism, where this thinking is coming from, a couple of them you mentioned.
Here, this see, Sufism is. When we are going to discuss this aspect here, where is that? कहाँ चला गया? So here, all of these philosophies here, they are accepting Greek mythology as their belief system. You see what they believe? Zeus is God. They believe, that those Greek gods are actually Epicureanism is the only one that rejects their gods. You know that? They reject their gods.
So what does it believe? How do they see
So
the worldview? What's the worldview of that?
You are jumping ahead. So
This is not how you.
So you want me to explain?
That how are we going to go down?
So that's what I'm saying. If you want me
It's
to,
not going to
then
go
we
down our throat if you don't explain those things.
we
Make
take
this
one.
side a reference.
We take one at a time, right? So you want me to go down? We don't have time. Next time we pick up each one of them, Sufism, Epicureanism, and go through one at a time. Okay? So I'm just explaining how things came about here. Then
So-
Islam
Hold on. What Judaism happened to Judaism?
Judaism also got influenced by Greek philosophies. There are various. Remember, I gave you an example last time how people started talking about how the world was created. Ibn Rushd.
Judaism. Still,
So Judaism also
It's very Tawheed.
It's Tawheed, exactly. So how was the world created? Their philosophers started giving rational and physical explanations. You see what I'm saying? So physical. Oh, this is how the world was created. The God created. They went.
But they do say that God created the world, right? Judaism.
Just give me a few minutes. I'll come back to that question. Okay. Let me continue and explain those things. See here, in Islam, Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd, they also believed in Allah, and they believed in the Wahi. But what was the problem? Why did Imam Ghazali have to write Tahaffut al-Falsafa against Ibn Sina? And why did Ibn Rushd write against Imam Ghazali Tahaffut al-Tahaffut?
Hold on, slow down. So, Avicenna.
Ibn Sina.
Ibn Sina.
Yeah.
What did he do?
This is what I'm good. So this is what happened. Here in Islam, the whole
At
concept,
the time of Ibn Sina.
Ibn Sina,
The
here
time.
Greek philosophies got translated. Okay?
So which is like 400 or 500 years after Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Yes. Which
What he did, he tried to
amalgamate Greek philosophical thinking like.
Latin and Augustan.
So no, hold on. That's so.
Iranian.
No. Okay. Here, his philosophy got fragmented into three parts. One is the Latin part, one is the Christian part, and one is the Persian part. Okay, so this is
Basically, he's Persian. Ibn Sina.
Ibn Sina is from, I believe he's from Persian. I think so. I can't remember. So
what he did,
not he did. Just Ibn Farabi, that will become whole branch Muslim philosophy. Ibn Farabi, and you have all these people, like they started. For example, how did the world start? Okay, they explained the existence of the God of Allah in terms of first cause. I don't know whether you have heard of philosophical things. First, he is needed for the first cause, for the creation, and after that, no.
it's automatic.
It's
Like you
automatic.
roll a ball,
The laws of the
and
nature.
the ball will roll on its
Exactly.
own.
Is this what Ibn Sina said?
That's what all philosophers said. It's not only one philosopher; it's all philosophers. See, this is and this is what
What do you mean by all philosophers?
all Muslim
This
philosophers.
time,
Yes, even today.
Islamic philosophers.
Forget about Islamic. All philosophers have this problem that this is the fundamental difference between Islam and every other philosophies is it's a mandate is as a
Who's running the show?
as a matter of aqidah. It is Allah who is in charge of this world at every moment in time. Is that about
So
aqidah?
are you saying these guys didn't believe that?
Forget about believe that. They are writing that they don't accept
writing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Forget about believing. They are writing
So
that.
they're saying Allah created the world, but Allah is not running the show.
That exists.
Were they from Mu'tazila?
Are you sure on that?
That's how it started. That's how it's. They are not from Mu'tazila, but that's how this philosophy started. Yes.
That's a big claim.
I'll show you Ibn Rushd. I showed you last
You have to
time.
tell more. I mean, it doesn't
So
So Ibn Sina was a Muslim, right?
okay. Now listen to this one. Last time I went jump ahead very hard.
But Mu'tazila was way,
No, listen.
divergent from
This we cannot call individual people Muslims or non-Muslims. They are dead.
No, forget about that. Let's talk about ideology and how it developed.
So we will only talk about what they wrote. Whether he died as a Muslim or not, that's between him and Allah. I'm not going to give any fatwa on that. And if somebody wants to talk to me, I don't have any opinion on that. Yeah, but what he has written, whether it is Islamic or not, it falls is in the Aqidah, that I can talk about.
So let's talk about that.
So, you want me to jump to Ibn Rushd? I can jump to Ibn Rushd.
Don't go
Yeah,
there.
just
Let's
we
talk
know
about
that
this.
we need to know that what he talked about. I guess Ibn Sina you mentioned about.
Ibn Sina, basically, this is Ibn Sina's. So let me just put Muslim philosophy into 2 points. Encapsulate Muslim philosophy in 2 points. One is the supremacy of reason, rationalism, over any other form of knowledge. I will explain that. Just give me 1 second. Second thing
You
is,
have to tell the source of knowledge first, which to say that.
Hold on.
A lot of people haven't taken that lecture.
and the second thing is, they believe there are 2 paths to truth. One through Wahi, which comes to the Anbiya, and the other one is through philosophers who use the intellect to get the truth. This is no, this is not. This has nothing to do with Islam. This is intellectual, reasoning. So what is the first point I said? What's the first point?
A source of knowledge.
Wahi. So what are we saying? They are saying, let me give you a very crude example. This is not good oversimplification, but I hope you get the point. Very crude. If there comes a hadith which does not, which might
No, you can't tell that. First, you have to tell the source of knowledge. What is source of knowledge?
okay,
You
sources.
want me to tell them?
Go ahead.
Okay, the source of knowledge is where the knowledge is coming from, what's the origin, what's the source, right? So source of knowledge is, number one, reasoning is the source of knowledge. Testimony is the source of knowledge. My dad told me, somebody told me, this is how it is made. So that's my source of knowledge, right? Then observation is a source of knowledge, right? Then Wahi is a source of knowledge. So we have sources of knowledge. So in Islam, what is the most superior source of knowledge? Good. But what if you start
When you want, no. If you reject Wahi, what becomes your primary source of knowledge?
How can you agree?
No, somebody who is not a Muslim. What is his primary source of knowledge?
Maybe the observation and.
There's only two. There's only two. There's only two.
Testimonial?
Either empirical or rational.
Okay.
That's
Principles.
That's
fundamental.
Can I write something? You want me to write something?
Everything is set up.
No. Okay, remind me someone to explain this thing on the board. I will explain to you with the I actually...
Words, you can use words.
Okay, so let me explain to you something. Rational example. See how it leads to problems. Rational, what is the difference between rational and empirical?
Yeah,
First of all, let's do that.
That's right.
Let's do that. Rational is 1 + 1 is 2. Agreed? You don't need actually things to do this. 1 + 1 is 2. If I say he is older than him, then you know obviously he was born before him. This is reasoning. You didn't actually see them getting born in time, right? What is empirical? Is this hot or cold? I have to sense it.
You have to touch it.
I have to touch it or smell it, feel it, or some way I have to get information. My mind processes it and then I come to a conclusion. That is empirical.
Okay.
So philosophy, so this is the fundamental. I mean, there are other ones that obviously I don't do experiment all the time, then I have to rely on testimony and all this, that's, forget about all that. So give you an example of this thing. Listen to this one, Farad. This is very interesting one. If we use reasoning, how many parents do I have? Two?
Two.
How many parents do my parents have? Four.
Four altogether.
Right? And then above them is 8. So it's basically a mathematical series of 2 raised to power 0 plus 2 raised to power 1 plus 2 raised to power 2 plus 2 raised to power 3 plus 2 raised to power n.
So you're increasing the population.
So basically my mind is telling you that there were more people back in past than today. This is rational. This is called the grandfather paradox in population biology, demographics. Okay.
And we are assuming one person is marrying only one lady.
So what happens? So this is reason tells you this, but empirically this is not true. What do we call this? Paradox. So your reason is faulty. You just proved that. Let's go to empirical. When it rains and the sunlight comes, you see a rainbow. Can anyone ever reach a rainbow?
No.
No. Your mind is at fault. Your empirical sense is at fault. Your mind has to tell you, the reason has to tell you, look, don't go after that mirage, you will die in a desert.
But your sense
This is called what?
Water.
This is called what? Illusion. Where illusion is where your empirical senses are wrong, reasoning is right. Paradox is where reasoning is wrong, your empirical sense is correct.
Very nice.
Both sources of knowledge you have killed in one instant as a primary source of knowledge. Will you take this as primary sources of knowledge?
No.
They will kill you in the desert, you will die. A philosopher left in the desert, he will die. Why? Because he thinks what? He thinks his mind is telling him there's water there.
So can you connect that with Ibn Sina? So I just want to make.
So I'm coming.
Yeah.
So is this clear now? So philosophy has two primary sources of knowledge: empirical and rational. No other source. So philosophers, whether they're Muslims or non-Muslims, this is their primary. So when Muslim
hold on. So you're saying philosophy has these two philosophers? So that's not entirely true, though.
Why?
Philosophers do reason.
But
You understand, like the Greek, all the Greek philosophers,
Yes.
for example, Socrates, Plato, or
Yeah.
Aristotle, these guys, they based all their rationalities on reason. So that's how they used to work.
reason and
They're not measuring stuff. They're not, all the empirical stuff that you're talking about, or all the what's the other one?
So listen.
Yeah.
We're jumping ahead. So here, this is where philosophy broke with science. in the history of ideas,
Yeah.
science is also philosophy, you know that.
Sure. Okay.
If you want, I can give elaborate.
No, if you say, I agree.
And not I say, what's the highest degree in science?
Philosophy.
I don't know.
PhD in science.
PhD.
Highest
Yeah.
philosophy of science.
Okay.
It is philosophy. So let me tell you what happened. All this, what we said science today, was studied till the 14 something under called natural philosophy. Okay? Natural philosophy bifurcated into mathematics and the natural sciences. Okay? And it was renamed science. Do you know what was the former name of economics? Moral philosophy. This was the name of, if you go and read economics of 1300,
And today, economics has nothing to do with morality.
Morality, exactly.
okay? Okay, so yeah, you're following me. So now what happened was, this is what happened. In the ideas, in the history of ideas, Greek times, all this period you see here that we're talking about, till about the Enlightenment and till about this period, rational basis of argument was the primary source of discourse. I will actually show you where that disconnect actually happens, okay? And then after this period, during the Enlightenment and this thing, says, you know what, reason, with all these people were writing against reason. Imam Ghazali has devastated, he has eliminated reason as a source of knowledge completely. His arguments have been copied by not one, not two, not three, all the major philosophers of European Western history, either knowingly or unknowingly. It may surprise people. Okay? So what happened? People said, you know what? We will do empirical method. Reason, backseat, empiricism, primary seat. So if you see here, this is another break here. Here, above here is rationalism. Below here is empiricism. Remember you talked about the two dogmas of empiricism long time back? So you got the idea? So here, you are right. Ibn Sina, Muslim philosophers, generally speaking, also were empirical. But most of the philosophers up here, they were rational. There are some empirical, things going on, like for instance, dropping a feather and a ball and seeing how fast they are dropping. Those kind of things were happening.
So what's the point you're trying to make? I'm actually confused. So because here's the thing, you're saying that because you mentioned that Ibn Sina, these guys. I think
your question was okay.
So our main topic was that we are starting off that our main source of knowledge is Wahi.
Primary source.
Primary source, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we agree on.
Yes.
But the point that you're trying to make is that these guys, they don't consider Wahi as the primary source.
No.
That's what you're trying to say.
In fact, they rejected.
They've rejected.
Most of them. But the Muslim philosophers, they couldn't reject it outright.
So they came up with other ways.
They said, it's not primary.
What is not primary?
Wahi for intellectuals. For the common man who doesn't, I'm not making this up.
Okay, now I get it. Okay, so that's the point they basically came up with.
Yes.
So they're like, okay, just to, fair, and both Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd, both.
This guy was even further ahead of Ibn Sina.
Okay.
Okay. So, does that answer your question?
Yes.
So in a nutshell, this is the Muslim philosophy, where, and I give you a concrete example, meaning if a wahi contradicts aql will take precedence over wahi.
This is what's happening nowadays.
This is
No, what is the third? We should believe it or what?
no, I'm just saying
This is what
this is their viewpoint.
Oh, okay, I get it. Okay.
This is not my viewpoint.
But
This is their viewpoint.
Okay, for the
And this is the reason why Imam Ghazali wrote Ta'afut al-Falsafa. And what was the second book? What was the second book? Nobody knows that one.
The book.
Tahaffut al-Falsafa is that's Imam Ghazali's book. Everybody knows his other book, but nobody in the Muslim mainstream would know, has read Tahaffut al-Falsafa or Maqasid al-Falsafa. These two books are so fundamental. You will not believe it. Sometimes the discussion he has written is so, it looks like he's writing for today's age.
Tahafuz al-Falsafa.
Al-Falsafa.
The other book, so here, so look at this diagram here very closely. I'll explain this thing one more time. Here there are 3 branches. Do you see that? Here there's only 2. Why?
I mean, they are, mixed together? Or?
No, just because of Imam Ghazali. He destroyed reasoning, philosophy as a source of knowledge that no Muslim, even by man, is interested in carrying this mission further. Look at, there are Muslims here who are doing that. But here, gone. Nobody is interested anymore because he has written such a devastating, critique of philosophy. Tahaffut, do you know what tahaffut means? Incoherence. Incoherence is a very hard word. If I say, Shahida, you are incoherent, meaning, I'm implying he's drunk, I'm implying he's lost his senses,
Out of his mind.
Out of his mind. It's a very strong word.
So would you agree on the fact that in today's world, so we have to explain Islam or to explain the things, not Islam, but to explain the things around us. So we need reasoning to a certain degree, but then
Of
we need
course.
to stop because at some point then we need to stop.
I'll come to, just let me finish my this thought.
Like a
Yeah.
balance of the two.
So
also.
let me give you.
Yeah, actually,
So-
very nicely you said, but very simplified fashion.
So let me finish this thought and then I will. So the other book that was very important, pivotal in this rationalist thinking is Radd Mantaq by Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. Radd Mantaq means what?
Yeah, that you are.
Radd,
Yeah, you are.
cut off.
Rejection of
of logic. But it's not logic.
Logic.
See, let me explain. There's a difference between reasoning and rationalism. There's a difference between logic and logicism. Do you understand the difference between this? Let me explain to you. Logic is, everybody does logic. Just like you said, everybody wants to be happy. See what I'm saying? But it has to be in a framework. Logicism is primacy of logic in your reasoning system, in your source of knowledge. Reason, everybody has reason. Even animals reason.
You think so?
Yes. They talk. Okay? But how did I come to that conclusion?
I don't know, you probably heard someone.
No. I am deriving, see, this is the difference. If scientist says that, he's coming through empiricism. I am coming because I am saying that because Allah and His Rasul told me.
Fair enough.
Let me give you a live discussion that I had with a pack full of people. What was this? They said, beheading and hanging is cruel as a capital punishment. I said, how do you come to that conclusion? How do you know that? If you are empirical and rational, how do you justify that?
Maybe he got beheaded.
The only way an empiricist can justify this, if you take that subject, you kill him in one way, revive him, kill him in another way, and ask him, okay, excuse me, sir, which was better? I'm not making fun, but that is, if you are a pure empiricist, that is how you will come to that conclusion.
That's the reasoning you did with those who wants reason.
But I said, no one has, but still I believe there are ways of dying which is painful. And so how do you come to that conclusion? Because why? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah said to me, the Sadiq al-Amin said to me, what did he say? Make dua that you do not die by drowning or by burning, because that is more painful death. I believe. I don't need to burn somebody, revive him, and drown him and revive him and kill him and revive him and say, okay, excuse me, sir, which was the better? You know that is impossible. So this is what Brother Fawad has been saying throughout this time period, is we are looking at Islam through the lens of secular, empirical, rational methods. And we are justifying our thinking.
So logic is a methodology, but when ism comes, then that becomes a whole philosophy.
You understand? Reason is not, Islam is not against reason. Allah Ta'ala has says how many times? Don't you reason?
Yeah, that's what. Okay.
But rationalism is a problem, where the primacy of reason is over what the Rasul is telling you. You understand? So that this is where philosophy was head on in collision with Islam. Nobody will swallow that pill. There's absolutely no way. So anyway, so Ibn Rushd was among the foremost. So this line here you see, Ibn Rushd influenced significantly.
No, Ibn Rushd, you can't come to Ibn Rushd because Ibn Rushd has Jewish
So hold on. So
thought coming to him, so you have to
No.
construct the Jewish thought till Ibn Rushd, then you can go ahead.
Huh? No, Ibn Rushd is passing on his thoughts to Jewish Quran and Renaissance.
Okay, but you wrote Jewish under Ibn Rushd.
Okay, so Ibn Rushd, his philosophy got taken by two primary people: Latin, the Christian, and the Jewish rabbis. Among them, Maimonides.
So is that taken by, or that's how he got it from?
No. This is
Passed on.
passed on. Anything going down is passed on.
Okay.
So these guys are taking from Ibn Sina. You see, it's splitting up. You understand? The Latin, Christian, and the Persian world. So here, the Western, the secular world, you can think of secular world, the Catholic, the humanist, and the Jewish philosophers. Here, one of the key person who he influenced Ibn Rushd was somebody called Spinoza. Spinoza is one of the prince of philosophers of the Renaissance and Enlightenment. Okay, and Einstein was asked, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, long quotation, if he were to believe in a God, he would believe in the God of Spinoza. Think about it. So think about the influence of Spinoza on people. Einstein, you can check it up.
Okay, so let's come back to Ibn Rushd. So what Ibn Rushd came up with?
So Ibn Rushd basically has...
So I understood that Ibn Sina came up with this superiority of rationalism, right, as a primary source, right, for intellectuals. This is what I understood from Ibn Sina.
So that is also passed on in Ibn Rushd. But Ibn Rushd went further. He also now started propagating the separation of, in modern language, the church and the state.
Church and state.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is why secularism is so much indebted to Ibn Rushd.
So what Judaism has to do, Jewish thought has to do with Ibn Rushd?
Not Jewish thought. Jewish people are going to take from Ibn Rushd.
Yeah, that they took, but he also took from them, right?
No, where do you see that?
Oh, okay. So
during the time of Ibn Rushd, isn't it the time of the Crusades were happening? Wasn't this? So you're saying the church and the state were divided? That's when it was divided. But at least that's what Ibn Rushd was trying to do.
So you mean
no,
that
the
church and state was divided in Europe? That thought originated by Ibn Rushd.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You understand the division of the church and state, secular world.
Yes.
So he's saying he started the whole concept. He and where is he? Okay, he's not here. Anyway, Plato. These are two people. If you talk to a secular person, let me tell you what happens when you talk about modern secularism today. If you ask a secular person, if he's coming from the Christian background, atheistic background, he will tell who first had the idea of this separation of church and state. It was Plato. If you talk to a Muslim, and especially our PhD brothers, they would say Ibn Rushd. Okay? So both of them claiming that this is, you understand what I'm trying to say here?
No, but that doesn't fall in line though. So because at that time, during these times, because you have the dates there, you're saying it's 1198 AD. So isn't that the time of the Crusades? That's what
The Crusades are happening all the time.
Yeah, no,
So
especially during that time. So during the 12th century, you had the those,
the Crusades were happening almost for 1,000 years. Okay.
right, but especially during that time, that's the second
Fine,
phase of
fine. Okay, so what's the point? What's the question?
The question is that at that time, especially in the Europe side, they wanted the church and the state to be actually together because that's how they were, fueling their war or the crusades at that time.
Okay.
So that's how it was being fueled. So why would they come? Why would they agree with Ibn Rushd? Or did Ibn Rushd did a good thing at that time? Saying that okay, he actually went ahead and split.
First of all, where is Ibn Rushd talking?
No, did you say that Ibn Rushd was propagated?
Listen. Where is Ibn Rushd? You know where he is?
Where he is? I don't
He's in Spain.
Okay.
The Muslims are ruling Spain.
Right.
Okay? Universities are there. People are coming from all over the world to, read and, learn. He's one of the teachers. So he comes with this philosophy that, the solution to this, through my thinking of these problems in the world is that you separate the church and the state. Okay?
Because at that time in Europe, they wanted.
Forget about Europe. He has nothing to do with Europe.
So he was coming up with church. What church has to do with
Church meaning
State.
the state and religion. Okay, let's put it this way.
It's not church. Actually, church was partner with the government.
Forget about church. When I say church and state, meaning they separate the political from
System from the religion.
From the
from religion.
So Islamic religion. So from Islam. That is
Of
how
course,
it-
that's
I
yes,
see, okay.
yes, yes.
So basically reduce the deen to religion, to
So he was
the rituals.
he was talking about Islam, but then you
Yeah, exactly. He was talking about Islam in the Islamic framework, which was then taken over
It
here.
has an implication today. The minute you talk about politics, a lot of people think, this guy has a political inclination, and that's why he's criticizing
Yeah, so
Islam.
that's why.
Islam is a religion. It
So,
has got nothing to
I
do
mean, this slide is way down here.
with government. It has nothing to do with it.
So
So that's the mentality that Ibn Rushd basically brought.
no.
So I think it's coming from Platonian
So,
Yeah.
ideas.
okay, so let me tell you this.
Yeah, he maybe polished.
There's this idea of separating the deen from politics is nothing new. It's coming from Plato. Okay? Philosophers have seen this problem. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us. Who did he send? He didn't just send, he didn't send a book. Who did he send? He sent a man with that book. And he didn't send any man with that book. He sent Muhammad Rasulullah. What's the significance there? Think about it. He's Sadiqul Ameen. Think about it. We really underestimate Risala. Risala and Wahi, if you don't understand this modern concepts, you cannot understand. You cannot. If you do not understand what is the implication in Surah Isra,
Israel.
Bani Israel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what is the 17th ayah, or can't remember, what does he say? He would have sent messengers even if they were malaika in the dunya.
He was sent Malaika messengers, if they're Malaika in the dunya.
Malaikas, they would be sent a messenger if they were in the dunya, meaning malaikas, messengers. What is the emphasis there? Guidance, ultimate reality. How can, I just showed you, if you use reason or empiricism, you stumble, you die. Forget about the akhirah, you die in the dunya. So how can you rely on that? So the whole concept, the Risala is very important to understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the institution of Risala to convey haqq to us. And here, all of these people here, they are doing mental gymnastics. Basically, jumping from one place to position to another. And believe me, I can reduce all of philosophy to basically 12 or 14 positions. And that's it. 8,000 years of philosophy I can reduce to only 14 or 15 positions.
Why don't you do that? Wouldn't that be easier?
That's this slide here.
Even if it's difficult to go there.
No, these are only 365 slides.
Only?
Yeah.
I thought it was 461.
Oh, 465. Even better.
This is all of 8,000 years of philosophy. I'm not bragging.
Okay, we have to come to that slide in next lecture.
Yeah.
Let's go back and what we publicize in the flyer.
So basically this is,
Complete that.
so this is Ibn Rushd. Ibn Rushd basically influenced Renaissance philosophers. From their secular thought took its own momentum and gave us modern secular thought. Any questions?
What do you mean by that? Come on, man.
Ask me questions.
Explain Renaissance, Enlightenment.
Okay, I have a question over here. So, for the Judaism, you have like two branches, like first for the the Hellenistic Judaism, and then you the Al-Kitab.
So, which one? This one?
Yeah.
We are talking about this one?
No,
This one?
Right above. We have two branches, right? Judaism, Hellenistic Judaism, and then on the right you have like the Al-Kitab.
Kalam, Jewish Kalam.
So, no, this one, you are talking about from here, right? From here
Yeah.
to here.
Yeah.
So this is, let's suppose this is the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to Musa alayhi salam. Let's assume there's some pure form of Judaism existing somewhere. It rapidly changed to Hellenistic Judaism. This is what we are saying. Okay? I mean, I'm simplified this, but that's not it.
People are changing.
Yes. In fact, let me tell you something. Islam would have changed by now if we had not the original Quran.
Yeah.
We can go back and say, oh, you know what? You are lying.
But yeah, obviously, yeah, that's true.
We are trying our best.
The problem with Christianity, with Christianity and Judaism is they lost their primary sources. So they were more prone to mixture. You see what I'm saying? So here what happens, so to explain your answer, let me tell you what happened. This is Bani Israel. This is not the complete timeline of Bani Israel. I'm just, I just done a small, try to illustrate these things. So here, look at this.
I think that this is, we won't be having enough time to justify this. So if you can go back to that slide and finish this, so next week we can.
Let me explain just briefly the brother. This is Judaism, supposing Musa alayhi salam. It changed rapidly into Hellenistic Judaism. When Islam came about, see how Judaism got influenced. Do you see that? They were influenced by both Mu'tazila and the Kalam. Okay? And then rapidly, this Karaite is basically where the movement in Judaism, where they rejected everything except the Torah. Just like, we have, in Pakistan, we have the Parvezi movement.
Yeah.
Ahle Quran, reject everything except the Quran. So this is somewhere along those lines. This is the modern enlightenment. This is what, what's his name?
You're not doing justice to it.
So anyway, so here, this is the enlightenment, this is the reform, this is what, hold on.
Compared, like shoe to shoe.
Hold on. Here, this is what people are demanding of Islam. They want Islamic reform and the Islamic enlightenment. The Muslim world should have a reform, they should have enlightenment.
Pressure on them too.
Huh?
The West is pressurizing.
Yeah,
Do that.
do that. So, and this is how these things got evolved. So anyway, this is a different topic altogether. So, but you see, this is the flow of the diagram, and then we can look at each one of these in detail and see how they are influencing modern thoughts in detail.
So you want to explain Renaissance, Enlightenment, or
Renaissance was
keep it for some other day?
So I can just tell you this. Renaissance was basically a time period in European history that we just went through, where the Middle Ages ended, the so-called Dark Ages ended, and a Renaissance means rebirth, and ideas in Europe, remember people from here are studying in Spain and different parts of the world. They are coming back and saying, we are not in a very good position. Psychologically, Europe has been devastated by the bubonic plague. It has decimated the population of Europe. People are, they want a solution. So people,
What plague?
bubonic plague, the plague. You missed that period. Let me just, after we go offline, I will just cover that period.
I'll see it.
Okay, that's fine. So basically, this is what is happening. Is Renaissance is people are tired of the conflict of the church. The popes fighting, and the morality of the pope. People don't know about that. You want me to? You want me to go through the morality of the popes? I can't do it on camera. I'm telling you, I can't do it on camera. I really cannot. Let me tell you something. In fact,
Hold on. Yes, please go ahead.
let me tell you one important thing. We do not understand this hadith at all. Haya is part of Iman.
Yes.
I am not bragging. If I were to open the books, the holy books of different religions today, you will not allow your own wife to be able to read that part.
Yeah, you can read.
I am not bragging.
Okay, now I have a question here. The question is, it is if you can see in this dark ages, you can see today in Muslim world the same problem. The problem is when you have a civilization who is in terms of materialism more developed.
More dominant.
Okay, more dominant, more developed. They have more resources. They have prosperity. So other which are less or deprived look up towards it. And when it was dark ages, so they were looking at Spain. So, whoa, look at the development. Look at the knowledge people have. How disciplined they are. They have money. They have resources. They have everything. Now, after looking at that, then they see why we don't have it. And they start looking problems in themselves and want to be like those. Similarly, this is what today Muslim countries are doing.
So I just sorry, go ahead.
Just one thing. So on that point, exactly. So at that time, so when they were looking up to Spain, and and that's when the Renaissance took about. But are we saying that did they read Ibn Rushd?
Yes.
And Ibn Rushd was a big influence.
He was a
in Spain.
Yes.
And okay, because I don't know about Ibn Rushd. That's why I'm asking all these questions. Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd, because these guys, so they basically shaped the society in Spain at that time.
No, Ibn Sina was not in Spain. Ibn Sina is
Okay, so Ibn Rushd.
Yeah.
So Ibn Rushd had shaped the society in Spain at that time.
Oh, shaping society is a big word, but he was a philosopher, teacher in the leading universities of Spain of that time when you're in Dark Ages.
And so these Europeans were mainly influenced by him.
Yes.
No,
Not
the word mainly.
No.
Okay, so let me tell you this thing. The whole chapter of Muslim influence on Western Europe. There's a whole topic of how Muslims influenced. There are two things: how Islam influenced Western Europe and how Muslims influenced. The two similar things is a whole chapter by itself. Okay, number one. But definitely, there are a lot of people who have been influencing this thing. Ibn Rushd's work was translated and read extensively by Western scholars, Renaissance scholars. Sorry.
So in a sense, what we're saying is that at that time, the Europeans in the Dark Ages, they believed that because they have their state and religion separate, that's why they are so successful and everything. Is that the idea?
No. This is the idea they got from
That was- he
him.
was-
But the point is, the point I'm trying to put up here is that we agree on this thing, that we know that less people who have less, countries or nations or civilization which have less, and when they see those who have more as superior, right?
Right.
Right? Now what they do, they react. How they,
They progress, themselves.
the progress which superior has, the inferior feel that we are deprived and they are better, right? So what they do, they how they react, these people. Like it was happening in Dark Ages, people were going to study in Spain and going back. Now they go back with an agenda to, to do something for their people. Or some might not going, staying back in Spain. Some people must have converted to Islam, or got so influenced, inspired. Some came back, like Allama Iqbal came back. Now, these people who are deprived countries, they react. They react in different fashions, right? Some want these deprived countries or deprived ideologies or deprived civilizations, and whatever you may call it. Some of them want to copy them, the dominant civilization. They want to copy them. But they're right in every way. Whatever they did, it's right. You just have to copy them. This is one reaction. What I'm trying to identify or highlight here is the reactions of this. Is because in 49 countries we have, right? In the Muslim countries. And this sentiment is in those countries. We see West and we see that, okay, this is the icon of prosperity. They know better, that's why they're there. And whatever they did, one reaction is copy them. That's it, it's easy. Another thing is some people, what they do, they pick up things.
Pick and choose, yeah.
And they bring it and see how we can, merge and devise a solution for our society. And this is what's going on. If you see today, this is exactly what. And then there is fundamentals who say, no, we have to go back to our fundamentals.
To reject everything.
And we don't need to get influenced or inspired.
Reject is a strong word.
We don't need to copy them and get influence from them or take the inspiration from them. We have our own inspiration. Right? So that's how a society reacts, and that's how it gets further divided, further and further.
So one of the reasons,
going on.
I'm telling you, one of the reasons why Muslims disappeared from Spain is they really believed that they've got it. It's not because of Iman. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed the Muslims in the world, and in Spain particularly, look, if you don't believe in me, see what happens to you.
The same thing happens in the Ottomans even.
There's a difference. The other Osmani Khilafah or the Mughals or any other places in the Muslim world, Muslims didn't disappear.
Yeah.
In Spain they disappeared.
Yeah.
They were exterminated.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Why? Because Allah subhanahu there must be some reason, right? Allah alim, what is the real reason? I really don't know. But looking at what was happening in Spain at that time, you see, Taj Mahal was also built in India, grandeur and pomp, and so on and so forth. Alhambra was, but Muslims were completely exterminated in Spain. Why? We should think about it. The thing is, one of the things is Iman. Once you lose your Iman, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to forgive you. You can.
Scholars, said that the reason behind that, the downfall of Spain is that they have killed their knowledge. They have the Nabi have burned. Nobody talk about that. They have lose the iman, or they have something. What I learned so far is that the basic downfall of Spain is that they lose their what they have learned.
So see, it's not only they were extravagant for everybody. The building and wasting money, that's fine. But Aqidah, core Iman.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Core Iman, if you look at, I can't say if Ibn Rushd was a Muslim or non-Muslim, but if you read his philosophy, of his, as a Muslim, I find it hard to understand that a Muslim is writing this. I'm not saying that he's not a Muslim, please
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah.
See, Islam is so weak now that Islam is so weak that I can't call people what they are. Somebody asked me, Mr. XYZ, you understand, he has disparaged the Rasul, he has disparaged Allah, he has disparaged the Quran, he has disparaged the Sahaba, and you say, do you call him a non-Muslim? You are saying he's a kafir? And I say, Allah knows.
Which is true, right?
No.
No?
He's not believing in Allah and he's just.
Wallahi,
Anybody who rejects
the very fact.
the minute you claim from your own mouth.
No, if somebody's claiming, that's a different story.
But he is.
You can't deduce from
Okay.
anyone, right?
Can you cut this portion out? Let me finish really elaborate.
It's going to be a different.
No, one second. No. This is Iman. Wait 1 second. Let me ask you this. Do you think Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan are Muslims?
I don't know. They could be.